Hi, I'm David.
Hi, I'm Yelena.
And welcome to our tutorial. It's on rolling up. Wow.
Before we go any further, I'm sure all of you by now know who this little guy is. That's Mr. Kani, and he is a rescue dog. So make sure to always adopt and don't shop.
Okay. And rolling up. We're going to talk about 3 different poses in the primary series. But before we do that, we want to tell you that we like having you here. We really like having you here. Do you like being here? Let us know. Tell us, like us, and subscribe. Please subscribe.
So in this tutorial, we're going to talk specifically about the Vinyasa. And in primary series, this Vinyasa shows up 3 times.
Yeah.
We have it for SUPTA KONASANA.
Yep.
We have it for UBHAYA PADANGUSTHASANA.
Yep.
And we have it for URDHVA MUKHA PASCHIMATTANASANA.
So SUPTA KONASANA is the reclined angle pose. And then UBHAYA PADANGUSTHASANA is the big toes together pose, or both big toes pose. And then URDHVA MUKHA PASCHIMATTANASANA is the upward facing west side stretching pose. Yeah.
But usually you refer to it as these ones?
Yeah. The one where you're catching your toe or the one where you're holding your feet? Actually, it'll be good that we're going over this a little bit too. If you're learning the sequence, people mess these up a lot. They kind
confuse them.
Yeah, they
combine them,
confuse them, hold the outsides or the big of the feet instead of the big toes or vice versa. It's very specific because it's Ashtanga, very structured. But actually, we're going to focus less on sort of the alignment or the rules of each of the postures, and we thought we would just focus on this kind of common action of rolling, which some people have difficulty doing, especially in the last 2, the UBHAYA PADANGUSTHASANA and URDHVA MUKHA PASCHIMATTANASANA, when the legs are together. Yeah.
And again, these poses come towards the end of primary series. So they're not beginner friendly. They're not easy poses. They require a lot of flexibility through the back line of our body and in particularly in our legs. So they look easy, but when it's your turn to learn them and try to do them, often they bring up a lot of frustration. So one of the first tips that I can tell you is if you can turn that frustration into giggles and learn how to kind of like laugh it off, looking silly and struggling, it'll change how you approach the practice.
True. Yeah. Nothing worse than people getting upset.
And then getting caught up in that frustration. Yeah. And it's just like, it's a roll-up that has no purpose outside of this little...
Yeah. Well, hopefully this will ease your frustration if you are feeling it. So let's look at the first one, SUPTA KONASANA. So SUPTA, reclined, Kona, angle, asana pose. We would lie back and then lift both legs and catch the big toes. So big toes is kind of the important part to remember for holding the feet. And just a quick outline of the posture. The feet are flexed, the hips are over the shoulders, and we would take 5 breaths here. And then the Vinyasa, Nava, we inhale, roll up, and exhale, come down, chin to the floor. We don't hold there. Dasha, inhale, head up, exhale, and then Yekadasha, jump back, you cross legs, pick up. So this one actually doesn't present too many difficulties with rolling up because, like I mentioned before, the legs are apart. Yelena was saying, usually it's the tension of the hamstrings, I think, that makes it difficult for people to do it the other way with the legs together. So when the legs are apart, we're not really...
limited.
Yeah, we're not meeting the tension of the hamstrings the same way. They don't
play out the same way.
Yeah.
The intensity of it goes away.
They're not getting as stretched or not stretched. So usually what's difficult for people there is coming down, with control. And again, that can be a hamstring issue because you want to keep your legs straight when you come down and land on your calves silently.
Silently. But there's a really important tip here, which comes back to this ability to really round our back. I think this is why we do that Baddha Konasana B version, because it kind of prepares us for these vinyasas. Kani's not impressed. It prepares us for these vinyasas of rolling up, which require us to go into more and more of that posterior tilt.
Posterior tilt and
the
flexion.
Yeah,
in the upper back too, the roundness up here. Really, ideally, it's an even curve through the spine. Because usually we don't have a problem rounding our back, right? We practice every day on our cell phone or at work or whatever. But that's not the same as being able to round your whole back. So what we want to do is try to get the curve even through the entire spine. So you can see Jelena is rounding in her lower back nice and evenly all to the upper back. And that is actually pretty tricky to do. It's hard to do. So you'll see when you want to roll up, the more you can curve your spine and keep your legs straight rolling up, the smoother it's going to be.
And that's that curve of your back allows for that momentum to carry you to the top and then into, in this case, coming down.
Yeah. Okay. So if we're doing UBHAYA PADANGUSTHASANA, that's both big toes pose, then the condition of the posture is to keep the legs together and straight. So together isn't usually too much of an issue, though it could be, but straight is often very difficult. It's nice in this sense. The next one's even harder. So this, at least we have the grip on the toes. So it's not like we have to come into a deep forward bend, right? In terms of what we're usually doing. I know for people that don't practice yoga at all, catching your toes with your legs straight is a deep forward bend. But assuming you guys can do that, it's not like you're bringing your torso right down onto your legs, right? You've still got lots of space there. So as long as you can keep your legs straight, then the rest of the work is going to come from rounding your back. I don't know if you're the same as me. When I'm rolling up, I think about pushing through my back as I come up. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, same, but for me comes from a different place. I think about pushing this part of my body back towards the spine. So it creates exactly the same
you
effect.
Think from the front to work through the back.
Yeah, so I always come back to this area, but it does the same thing of pushing.
Yeah, I almost kind of like try to lead with vertebrae by vertebrae, So as I'm rolling up, I'll press down through the back, each of the
vertebrae. That's a good tip.
Yeah. So let's see. This is UBHAYA PADANGUSTHASANA. After you jump through, you would lie back, and then Ashtanga, inhale, lift both of your legs, and you catch the big toes, first two fingers. Okay, and then Jelena's legs are straight. She's gonna roll up, trying to keep the legs straight and balance there at the top. She makes it look pretty smooth and easy, but for a lot of people, it's a very difficult movement because you've got to roll up and then stop yourself at the top. And I don't know if you could see when Jelena did it or not, but watch the position too of her feet as she rolls up. So she's going to roll holding that round back there, and then she's going to point the feet like that. Usually that's what's going to kind of lock you into position. Yeah.
I did it slow for the purposes of you being able to notice the positioning of my feet. But it's in the practice, I do it much faster, and that pointing of the feet happens as I reach that top because it then solidifies my place.
Keeps you in the spot, locks you in. Yeah. So again, you see, she doesn't really change the shape of the spine, even when she comes up that much. She's still holding a little bit of the curve in the lower back and then extends through the chest. Yeah.
So watch again this distance between my thighs and my side body or my ribs. I'm trying in my head to create as much space between it as possible so that my legs kind of lead the way and my body, upper body kind of rolling back nice and slow is what creates that balance of the two forces. Which sounds maybe easy now that you've heard it, but often we do the exact opposite where we're trying to keep our legs and our upper body together because we think that's what's gonna get us to roll.
People are kind of thinking from their chest,
right?
And so they'll try to like bring their chest towards their legs, but you want to keep the space open. Maybe if you do it with your head that way, it'll be clearer too. I don't know. So you can see how Yelena is not right on the top of her shoulders, because that would require her to get more spinal extension like that. See how she's kind of on the back of the shoulders? So she's already in that round position, okay? So that's she's already set the roundness of her back, and then she's almost gonna deepen or accentuate it by, she pushes in through the belly or down through the belly and creates more roundness as she comes up. And she keeps that length or the distance between the arms and the legs. Yeah. Yeah, okay. and then Urdhva Mukha Paschimattanasana, upward facing forward bend, west side stretch. We can do the same thing. This is going to be harder now because it requires more hamstring flexibility. Because you're holding your heels, so you don't have as much space between the body and the legs. See, here she's got to get more of a reach. And then also she's got less space between her body and her legs to use the legs as a counterweight, you know? So she's gonna have to do more rounding really to come up. So that's it, very nice, good. Hard to do that sort of under pressure like that. And then she gets into this point leg position. So this is Nava in terms of the Vinyasa count. We roll up. Notice the arms are still straight to maintain the distance here. And then she's starting to get more spinal extension now. So she's not round here. As she comes up, as she finishes the movement, she lifts the chest up like that. All right? And then Dasha, she would fold. So those are separate movements too.
Another common movement that happens in all of these three roll-ups is you see me pushing back through my heels when the toes are over my head. This pushing back kind of allows for that a little bit more momentum that you can use, where you kind of push back in the direction of your head and then you use that to bring yourself.
Yeah. Are you pushing off with your toes too?
At first I was. Now I think I don't rely on that as much, but I still push back through the heels, which goes deeper into your hamstring, and then the roll-up happens.
It's similar in some ways to a pose that comes earlier, Garbhapindasana, where you thread your arms through your legs in lotus, and then you kind of hold yourself in a static position, a round back position, and rock. And even though, of course, you're going to use, some of your leg and some of your head and shoulder to rock.
Right.
It almost comes from inside. Like you almost feel like you're holding the same shape in your body, but still creating a rocking motion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, another example of kind of this intelligence within sequencing, or even just now doing it, I realized the first roll-up that we have, which was the first pose I demonstrated, SUPTA KONASANA with legs wide. When we start, the initial 5 counts of that asana are with the legs back. And so when I'm staying there, I'm trying to have my back nice and straight, but then the roll-up requires me to go into this deep flexion and roll. And then when we do UBHAYA Padangusthasana, the legs together but still holding onto our toes, we find that part of the asana when we roll up. So we start with the back more round to roll, and then we find that extension. and then more of that happens
Even more in Urdhva Mukha.
in Urdhva Mukha Paschimottanasana. So just noticing that there is thought behind
Like an intelligence in the sequence.
And as well noticing the patterns. I think it's really useful if in your practice you realize that things aren't random for the most part, but again, that there is repetition, and learning one movement and being skillful in your body, you apply it later on again.
Yeah. Elements sort of that are repeated and reinforced. All right. Well, good luck. These are hard. Try not to give up rolling up with straight legs in Padangusthasana and the Paschimottanasana ones. So it's possible, but sometimes I see people kind of worry more about just balancing and kind of settling for that. You know, really keep working on it with the straight legs, even if it means that you have to roll down and start again, and you know, eventually it will come.
Trust the process.
Yeah. I hope this was helpful for you. If you like it, please let us know, comment, let us know if it was helpful. If it wasn't, maybe just keep it to yourself. And subscribe, because we're going to put out these tutorials every week, and Connie really wants to see you. Yeah. Thanks for joining in.
Bye.
Bye.